I'm Chris Dutchko, co-host of the Ninth Grade Experience podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Coming up on episode 240 of the House of EdTech podcast, I got to give you a little January pick-me-up. We're going to talk about QR codes on your classroom door, and the big topic of the day, of course, we're going to talk about essential skills for students in the AI era. Strike up the band. Welcome to the House of EdTech. My name is Chris Nesi. The House of EdTech launched in 2014, giving me the opportunity to speak with teachers, leaders, and creators so you can more effectively integrate technology, strengthen your pedagogy, and have more confidence in your classroom and school so you can make an impact. Get involved with the podcast by visiting my website, chrisnesi.com. Using technology isn't difficult, and this is where it begins. This is the House of EdTech. Welcome back. Happy January. In the words of the great AJ Bianco as Eddie Murphy, Merry New Year! So excited to have you back here with me as we start 2024. If you missed it, the podcast has turned 10 years old. I released a bonus episode back on January 5th, and here we are with our next full feature episode of the podcast. If you are a brand new listener, welcome, welcome, welcome. If you're a returning listener, welcome back. Very excited to have you here, making House of EdTech a part of your anytime, anywhere professional development. Got a jam-packed episode. We've got all the parts and pieces of the episode, and we're going to get things started with my EdTech thought. Every day that you step into your classroom, you are not just armed with books, but you also bring with you a passion that ignites minds and hearts. Your role goes beyond teaching. You are a mentor, you are a guide, and sometimes even a friend to your students. Remember, each word you speak, each lesson that you impart, carries the power to shape a life. In the face of these challenges, your resilience becomes a beacon of hope to the young minds in your classroom. Your dedication, often unnoticed, often unappreciated. In those moments when you feel unseen or overwhelmed, know this: your impact is truly immeasurable. You're not just covering the syllabus. You're not just working your way through curriculum. You are uncovering potential. You're not just teaching a lesson, but you're giving life lessons that extend far beyond the walls of your classroom. Happy New Year. And that's my EdTech thought. And now it's time for this episode's recommendation. Monica Burns, host of the Easy EdTech podcast, recently put out a blog post on her website, classtechtips.com, where she shared 12 ideas for putting QR codes on your classroom door. And I'm going to have a link to that in the show notes for this episode of the podcast, which are actually a swipe or a tap away where you're listening right now, or you can go out to my website, chrisnesi.com/240, that's 240, and you can check out the 12 ideas that Monica shares in her blog post. I want you to do that, but I want to add 4 more ideas on top of that. Number 1, and again, these are ways that you can put up QR codes, 1, 2, or many, on your door to direct students to some information or some fun stuff. Number 1, here's what I'm adding in. Consider using a QR code to link to a feedback form or maybe a digital suggestion box. Link to a form where students can either let you know who they are, or even anonymously give feedback or suggestions about class. Number 2, link to your class blog or maybe a class website. Direct students via a QR code where they can find additional materials and updates about class. Here's a great one. Consider using a QR code to link to daily inspirational quotes. And here's a tip. You don't even have to write them. You can find any number of websites that update on a daily basis. You just put a QR code up with a link to that quote website, and the work is done. It's going to have a new quote every day, and make sure you check it so maybe you know what the quote is, and you can have a conversation with your students, and maybe they can get that little pick-me-up when they're passing your class in the hallway, or if you're working with students who aren't changing classes, but they've got their devices, they can scan that QR code on their way into class, and maybe that sparks some conversation for the day. And the fourth one, and this is, of course, going to be my favorite one, that is using a QR code to link to maybe an audio message or even a video message that you maybe update daily or weekly from yourself with announcements, words of encouragement, or really whatever you want it to be, but you get to have a little fun with some education technology. So consider adding QR codes to your classroom door, and if you're already doing that, let me know what you're doing. Send me a little feedback. Send me an email, feedback@chrisnessy.com, or let me know on the social media, X, Instagram, TikTok. I'm everywhere. Send me your thoughts. QR codes on the door. And that's my EdTech recommendation. All right, let's dig into the topic of today's episode, and that is the essential skills that I think students will need here in the age of AI. Now, I've done a number of episodes on AI in the last year, and there are now countless books and podcasts and people talking about AI. But as always, I watch, I listen, I'm using AI as a teacher, I'm using AI with students, and I have some thoughts. So let's dive into kind of what I've assembled here as to what I think are the essential skills that our students need. First, let's consider the technical skills. All right, understanding AI and machine learning. I'm not saying every student needs to be a data scientist, but a basic grasp of how AI works is important. Think of it like this. We teach kids about photosynthesis, not because we expect them all to become botanists, but because it's a fundamental part of understanding the world. In the same way, knowing the basics of algorithms, data analysis, and how machines learn can take away the mystery of the technology that is ever becoming integrated into our lives. Next, programming and computational thinking. Coding is often likened to a superpower or a world or a foreign language in many ways, but it's also becoming as fundamental as reading and writing, whether it's Python, JavaScript, or even block-based coding for our younger students. Programming teaches logical thinking, problem solving, and creativity. It's about understanding the language of the digital world. And let's not forget data literacy. In a world where data is the new oil, being able to interpret and analyze information is priceless. But it's not just about crunching the numbers. It's about understanding what data can and cannot tell us about privacy, about the ethical use of data. It's about making informed decisions in a world full of information. So those are some of the technical skills that form the bedrock of AI literacy. Understanding AI, programming, and data literacy. It's not just about preparing students for jobs. It's about equipping them to navigate a world where AI is as common as electricity. Now, let's move on to the next piece. And that is going to be critical thinking and problem solving. With all of this information at our fingertips, it's not just about what you know, but how you use that knowledge. AI is great at processing data, but it's the human mind that excels at analyzing and interpreting this information in meaningful ways. Think about it. When you use a search engine, you are presented with thousands of results, and that's being conservative. But it's your critical thinking skills that help you determine which sources are credible and which are not. In the classroom, this translates to teaching students not just to accept information at face value, but to question, analyze, and challenge it. Next, we need to consider adaptability and flexibility. The world is fast-paced. The tech world is ever-changing. What's relevant today might be obsolete by the time you're done listening to this episode. Students who can quickly adapt to new technologies and learn new skills will be the ones leading the charge in the future. And it's not just about learning to code. It's about learning how to learn. Embracing a mindset of lifelong learning, being open to new ideas and experiences, and being flexible in the face of change. These are the skills that will prepare students for jobs that do not exist yet. And finally, innovation and creativity. In a world where AI can drive cars, write articles, create art, what sets us as humans apart? It's our ability to think outside the box. AI systems work within the parameters that they've been given, but we as humans, we dream, we imagine, we innovate. Encouraging creativity isn't just about arts and crafts. It's about fostering an environment where thinking differently isn't just allowed, it's celebrated. So how do we cultivate these skills in our classroom? Well, we've got to encourage students to ask why and what if. We need to create learning experiences that adapt to change and promote innovative thinking. As educators, it's not only our job, it's our responsibility to teach students not just what to think, and it's not even that. We need to teach them to think. We need to teach them how to think. The next piece is collaboration and teamwork. Again, AI and technology, they are inherently collaborative. We need to teach students that understanding how to work effectively in teams is crucial. Students aren't just preparing to work alongside other people, but also learning to interact with these AI systems and digital tools. It's about leveraging diverse strengths, where our creativity and AI efficiency complement each other. Think about a group of students working on a robotics project. They're not just coding or designing. They're negotiating roles, sharing feedback, and building something greater than the sum of its parts. These are the skills that will define their professional success in any field, AI-related or not. The next thing we need to consider is emotional intelligence. In a time where screens dominate our interactions, understanding and managing our emotions, both our own and others, is a game changer. Emotional intelligence in the classroom leads to better communication, empathy, and conflict resolution. Those are skills that AI can't replicate. This is about teaching students to see beyond the code, beyond the pixels, and to understand the human experience that technology serves. Whether it's in designing user-friendly apps or analyzing data with a human-centric approach, emotional intelligence is what makes the tech truly valuable. And finally, let's address the ethical and responsible use of the technology. As educators, we're not just teaching students how to use AI. We're guiding them to use it wisely and ethically. It's about asking the right questions. Just because we can, should we? How do we ensure that technology benefits society and doesn't harm it? We need to embed these discussions into the classrooms, from understanding data privacy to recognizing bias in the AI algorithms. It's critical that the next generation is equipped to make decisions that are not just technologically sound, but also morally responsible. As I wrap up this segment, I want you to think about how these socio-emotional skills play out in your classroom and your school. How are we preparing our students to not just navigate, but lead in a world where AI is a constant companion? The next piece that I want to talk about is digital literacy. It isn't just about being able to use the tech. It's about working our way through and navigating the digital environments intelligently and effectively. In a time where information is at our fingertips, it's crucial for students to know how to find, evaluate, and use information responsibly. Think about it. When given a research assignment, how many students can distinguish between a credible source and a not so reliable one? How many of your students will simply take a research question and throw that right into Google and search it up? This skill is more important now than ever with the amount of information that's available. Consider cybersecurity. We live in a world where our digital footprint gets bigger every day. From social media to online banking, our personal information is out there. Teaching students about cybersecurity is teaching them how to protect themselves in this digital world. It's about understanding the importance of a strong password, for example. And no, 123456 is, of course, not a strong password. It's about recognizing phishing attempts and understanding the implications of sharing personal information online. Here's a little story. Last year, a student of mine clicked what seemed like a harmless link in an email they got. The next thing that they knew, their entire digital project was gone. It was a hard lesson, and we had to have a conversation about cybersecurity, and I had to, bring the attention of the email to the technology people where I am. We need to equip our students with the knowledge to avoid these pitfalls. And I know what you're thinking. Sometimes we as adults fall for these things too. Maybe in your school, you get phishing emails from somebody who claims to be your principal and wants to give you a gift card as a thanks for all of your hard work. That's probably not true. Not that you're not working hard. Or maybe your principal would send you a gift card. But what's the odds of that? But hey, it's not all doom and gloom. The digital world is a place of vast opportunity. The key to navigating it is awareness and responsibility. As teachers, parents, and mentors, it's our job to guide students through this landscape. So what can we do? Start conversations in your classrooms about digital footprints. Encourage students to think before they click, and not just on standardized tests, which is something I do. Integrate digital safety into your curriculum. Remember, a well-informed student is a well-protected student. If you have other thoughts on digital literacy and safety, send me an email, feedback@chrisnessy.com. Finally, I want to talk about self-motivated learning. Obviously, everything is moving faster than textbooks can keep up. The ability to teach one's self is invaluable at this point. I hope you are also, like me, taking classes at YouTube University. I'm always learning new things. Remember when you had to learn to use Zoom almost overnight and transition to remote and virtual learning? That's self-learning in action. It's about being proactive, seeking out information, and not being afraid to dive into the unknown. Here's another challenge. Think of a skill or a topic that you're curious about. Maybe it's understanding how AI algorithms work, or learning a new programming language, or pick some other hobby that you might like to get into. Set a goal and learn a little bit about it each week. It's kind of like Genius Hour, but for you. There's tons of resources online, from MOOCs, again, watching YouTube videos, going to TikTok, learning on Instagram. The key? Just start. Now, let's talk resilience. This isn't about bouncing back. It's about growing from challenges. In tech and life in general, failure is often the stepping stone to success. Think about coding. It's often trial and error, right? Every error in a code teaches you something new. Every draft of an essay you write improves your writing. So what does this mean for our students? It means encouraging them to be curious, to seek knowledge independently, and to view challenges as opportunities. Whether they're learning a new app or tackling a complex problem, the mindset remains the same. Keep learning, keep growing, keep going. As teachers, we have a unique role in nurturing these skills within our students. It's about creating an environment where curiosity is rewarded, where it's okay to fail and try again. It's about showing our students that learning doesn't stop when the bell rings. It's a lifelong adventure. And that brings us to the end of the featured segment. The conversation doesn't end here. I want to hear your thoughts. I want to connect with you. How do you do all of this in your classroom? What are your ideas? What are some of your strategies? Keep the conversation going on social media. Send me an email. Send me a voicemail, which would be even better. Show notes are a swipe or a tap away where you're listening to this episode. What are the essential skills that our students need in the AI era? And if you noticed, everything I talked about today, AI will help enhance. It's not about how to use AI necessarily, but if we do these other things, AI is going to become a part of this. And I want to know what you think. Speaking of learning and growing, doing something here for the Just Give It a Try segment. This is where typically I invite you to submit things that you are trying in your classroom. Maybe they worked, maybe they didn't, but you share your story and we grow. Here is something new that I am trying, and it'll work better if you do it with me. So I have previously talked about texting me and having a textual relationship with you, and Remind is what I was using to power my text initiative, my texting community, as I'll say. But I'm moving from Remind to GroupMe for my texting community. GroupMe is a free texting tool. Again, don't have anybody's phone numbers. A lot of students in college use this, and that's what's inspired me, as it's something I'm actively trying with my Rutgers classes this year in the spring 2024 semester. I've previously leaned on Voxer to do this, but I'm listening to the feedback I get over the years, and my students just aren't into Voxer. So I am meeting them where they are. So I'm leveraging GroupMe. Now, if you want to try this out with me, and I am going to be, again, this could change, so you have to bear with me because this is all an experiment. If you want to try this with me, go to chrisnessy.com/textme, and that'll bring you to my GroupMe group for the House of EdTech. It's free to download, free to sign up, and we'll see where this goes. I'm going to invite the people who are on Remind to join the GroupMe group, and we'll see where this goes. I won't spam you, and people who are already getting my text messages from time to time know that I'm not texting you every day. And if you're already getting the text, you will need to move over to GroupMe, as I'm going to be shutting down the Remind group at the end of February 2024. So let's just give this a try, and maybe this will be something, if we have a positive experience, who knows where it goes, and maybe you'll find a way to use this with your students, your school, your teams, whatever the case may be. Actually, as I'm recording this, I'm thinking, if I think all the way back to episode 1, one of my first House of EdTech recommendation was a now defunct site and service called Selly. And here I am, 240 episodes in, talking about another way to communicate via the cell phone. So let's just give it a try. Let's try GroupMe. And again, go to chrisnessy.com/textme, and that'll get you into this new GroupMe group where we can chat with each other. All right, just give it a try. I want to thank you for returning here in the new year in 2024 and listening to this episode of the House of EdTech. If you haven't already, I invite you to subscribe or click the follow button so you can continue to make House of EdTech a part of your anytime, anywhere professional development. To get the most out of the show, be sure to check out the show notes where I share all the resources and different things that I talk about in each and every episode. For this episode, go to chrisnessy.com/240. I also want to let you know that I genuinely enjoy hearing from you, the listener. I value your feedback. I want to hear your perspective. Not a lot of other podcasters invite you to do that, but I want to hear from you. That puts gas in my tank. So, whether you have thoughts or questions about a recent episode or any other education or EdTech related topic, don't hesitate to reach out. You can email me feedback@chrisnessy.com, or better yet, leave a voicemail at chrisnessy.com/voicemail. Your feedback, your thoughts, they help me create better content and improve the overall experience. So please share your thoughts with me. If you know somebody who would benefit from listening to this podcast, I encourage you 1,000-fold. Share it with them. Spread the word on social media. Pick your platform of choice. I don't care where you share it. I want you to share it. Word of mouth is also cool too. Your efforts will help me reach a wider audience of educators who will also get value from the show. And I want to thank you in advance for helping me expand the reach of the House of EdTech. Lastly, I invite you to become an awesome supporter if you're getting value from my content. I'm incredibly grateful for the ongoing support from the following people: Leo Calbush, Jeff Herb, Peggy George, Mike Messner, Matt Miller, Brian Carpenter, and Aaron Cummings. If you're getting value from this podcast, you can become an awesome supporter by going to chrisnessy.com/awesome. Your generosity will go a long way in helping me to continue delivering exceptional content to you and the entire House of EdTech community. The next episode of the podcast will be episode 241, and that's going to come your way on February 1st, 2024. I'm settled in, I'm ready to go, and we're going to celebrate year 11 of the podcast. So exciting. Until next time, thanks for learning with me, and remember, using technology isn't difficult. Just give it a try.